If we were to give you a list of his accomplishments in the world of film, we'd be here all night. That's because when it comes to movie making, producer David Brown has done just about everything. His classic film Jaws alone was responsible for changing the summer movie-going habits of most Americans. We caught up with David in his Manhattan office as he was getting ready to start another movie and write a new book.
I say to anyone who wants to be a producer, don't. It's the lowest job on the food chain. If you want to be a producer, be prepared to, first of all, have the savvy to identify story material that will attract directors and stars. A producer has to be inured to rejection. Never take a company as an ally or a personal friend. You're only as good as you are to them. And when you're no longer good to them, you're out.
You ever wonder what the office of a very famous, very successful movie producer looks like? Well, here it is. Walls filled with awards, pictures of the rich and famous, moments of movie-making history. This is the life of David Brown.
Marilyn Monroe would come into my office and sit on my lap and say, "What good stories do you have for me?" She was no bimbo. She was smart. And she always wanted to do good things, but she was typecast.
Okay, and roll.
Steven Spielberg, a genius. On Sugarland Express, most directors shoot little inserts to prove to sort of step easily into the beginning of film, but Steven Spielberg shot a difficult shot, and we knew the kid was not only in the picture, but was the picture.
I often refer to myself as the king of the cameos.
Gregory Peck is one of the world's, or was one of the world's, outstanding liberals politically. And when we presented MacArthur to him, Richard Zanuck and I, he sat in his Brentwood home and said, "You know, if I make this picture, all my buddies are going to say I've sold out." Well, Greg Peck did so much research on MacArthur that he began to take on the prejudices and foibles of MacArthur. And he began to complain of Harry Truman getting so much footage in the movie. Yeah, hello?
David Brown has a knack for telling stories. In fact, his book, Let Me Entertain You, is full of them. It begins with recollections of his career as a journalist and as an editor in New York City during the Great Depression, and takes you with him to Hollywood, where he made his name, his fortune, and his mark.
This guy's a collector.
How did you end up in Hollywood?
I was getting a divorce, and I wanted a new life and a new wife. I got an offer to go to the West Coast, and it was a good time for me to do that. I met my wife, Helen Gurley Brown, in Los Angeles. We started a 44-year marriage out there. Darryl Zanuck was a super mogul in the sense that he made decisions, and that was that. If a picture didn't work, he took responsibility. If it did work, he took credit. Lew Wasserman outlived his own myth. The business had changed. There couldn't be a Lew Wasserman today, because movie companies are now blips on the radar screens of giant corporations.
As a producer or studio executive, Brown's credits include The Sting, Deep Impact, Kiss the Girls, Cocoon, and Driving Miss Daisy, just to name a few.
Oh, I just love the smell of a new car. Don't you, Miss Daisy?
But it was a movie about a great white shark that gave Brown the financial independence every producer craves.
Jaws was the precursor of all summer blockbusters. It started the notion that you could make a fortune in the summer months by going out to many, many theaters. In the old days, big pictures would be exhibited in 1 or 2 theaters. Now we open in 3,000 or 4,000 theaters if it's that kind of movie.
So in an industry where the only thing that remains constant is the competition, how does one find success?
If you study the biographies of most movie stars, you'll find, whether it's Gene Hackman, Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise, Robert Redford, Paul Newman, they started very small. Many of them worked in the theater. Some of them worked in early movies. Clint Eastwood made spaghetti westerns. You do what you can. You do windows. Somehow you get involved. You drive a cab. You have a day job. And you go to every cattle call, as we call the casting calls, and hope that some casting director notices you.
What do you say to somebody who wants to be a producer?
Don't. You have to be able to get up in the morning, and as my partner Joe Wazan once said, to be a producer means you're being kicked in the crotch when you get up in the morning, but you get up again, you get kicked in the crotch again, you get up again, and one day nobody kicks you, if you're lucky.
What an amazing man. And not content with all of that, David Brown's company, the Manhattan Project, is currently working on the film version of James Patterson's best-selling book, Roses Are Red.